Hello, everyone. How are you doing? And welcome to another episode of the Dr. Will Show. I'm your host, Dr. Will. Now, today we will be talking about personal branding, and it's something that I have a deep interest in. And if you follow me on Twitter or Google Plus, you see a lot of stuff that I actually put out there. And I've had actually the pleasure of speaking with Robin Roffer. I don't know if everyone knows who she is with Big Fish, and I've interviewed her before as well. So it's a topic that I really like. So we're here today, and we're here with Julie Harris, who is really awesome. I love her visuals. It really keeps me interested. And so let me just introduce Julie. So Julie, for those who are watching and may not know who you are, will you introduce yourself, please?
Oh, I'd be pleased to. All right, hello everybody. Thank you so much for joining, and thank you so much for Dr. Will for inviting me to be on your show. I am so thrilled to be here with everybody today, and like Dr. Will, I too have a grand passion for branding. I am the owner and creative director behind Julie Harris Design. I work on branding and business development for small businesses and entrepreneurs, helping them design a brand that not only looks, but acts, feels, and sounds just like they do.
Awesome, awesome. So, folks, I know most of you are educators, and one of the reasons I find this so relevant is that a lot of us out there are edupreneurs or teacherpreneurs or whatever you want to call it. We're consulting, we're writing, we're blogging, and I thought branding would be a great topic for us to sort of touch on and maybe educate my audience out there. So let's begin by defining what a personal brand is or isn't.
Well, when people ask me oftentimes what's branding, especially people when I introduce myself and tell them what I do, I usually say branding is you. You are your brand. You are your own personal brand, from the way in which you conduct your business, be it online, offline, the way you go about your life every day. There's a certain way in which you carry yourself, you act, you think, and that is your brand. Being entrepreneurs, teacherpreneurs, creativepreneurs, whatever kind of preneur you are, oftentimes it's a service-based business, or even if it's not, it's a product-based business. As a small business owner, we have creative control over everything we do, and everything that is our business is our brand. So whether you're looking at the visual identity that helps recognize you visually when people see your business, or whether it be the creative process in which your workflow moves within, versus your website, versus your emails, versus meeting you at a coffee shop, everything you do defines how you are perceived, and the way in which you perceived is your brand.
So how do people go about the process of discovering their personal brand?
There's a number of different ways to go about it, but for me, when I'm working with my clients, the first thing I do is try to identify the you in your brand. Find out who you are, what you stand for, what you want to be known for. Sort of identifying the key qualities that make you who you are, and finding out ways to really exemplify those through your business, through the way in which you conduct yourself. That can be defining your brand's values or your brand's promise, the goals in which you have, whether no matter what it is you're doing, even if your brand pivots, you stop doing one service, you start doing another, figuring out what it is that's really important to you and get that defined. That's the first step in building any kind of brand, is really knowing who you are and what you stand for. And then finding out from there how to articulate that in both text content, video content, visual content, so that that's kept consistent across whatever platform in which you're doing your business. Whether I find you via Twitter, I find you via Instagram, or I run into you at the grocery store, that I would be able to recognize you and have a personal relationship with you based on the values in which you conduct yourself as a professional.
So when you are out there and you're reading a lot of stuff on branding, or you're watching some YouTube videos, I'm a YouTube junkie, by the way, you hear people talk about target audience. So what is a target audience, and how does that relate, or play into people defining their brand?
It's one of the things I think that doesn't get enough attention when we're talking about branding. Oftentimes people want to jump right into the visuals. They get so excited about color palettes and typography and logos. And all of that, of course, is important because it's the visual side when people do business. And most of us, I'm assuming, do business online. But when it comes to your target audience, that is a huge factor in dictating the types of content you'll create, how you'll market yourself, and where all the visuals are then going to come into play. When you're trying to define your audience, it's not... When people say that they want to help everybody, they want to be able to reach everybody, assist everybody, I always tell my clients that if you try to stand for everything, you essentially stand for nothing. So being able to really kind of articulate in your own mind or picture an individual person based on the perfect qualities that would make up the individual that you could do the most good for. Yeah, you want to educate people or teach people or assist people, but being able to know the one individual or one generic individual that has qualities that as many people could identify with because it's so clear. Thinking simply will help you to focus your content, speak clearer, speak cleaner, and it'll be something that others will also be able to recognize. So when you're developing your target client audience or your target readers, your students, whatever it is that you're doing, thinking based on the demographics of the client, of the personality traits, of their social traits, and their financial traits. Oftentimes in business and branding, we kind of skirt around the financial talk, but in brand development, the financial process in which you do business is a huge part in the experience that will then be identified in your brand. So knowing how your target audience spends money, target automation, what's the education level of your target audience, being able to know how they share information. Is it word of mouth marketing? Is it social networking? Is it Google searching? Do they use Facebook? What do they do all day long? Are they a stay-at-home parent or are they a working professional? Are they a student? That will all dictate the types of technology that they use in their day and how they search out their information and how they're going to then come in contact with their businesses. And that heavily dictates the branding that we really wanted to discuss today, being what types of information, how do you curate the right types of content? It's heavily dependent upon identifying your target audience and knowing who it is that you're speaking to.
So after one has after defining your personal brand, how does one look to identify themselves or stand out visually? Is it all about the logo, or does the colors or designs, do they really have an impact on one's visual brand recognition?
Oh, definitely. When it comes to the visual branding, it's not just the logo or the color palettes or the textures or the typography. It's everything together. I believe it was Steve Jobs had a quote that design isn't just what it looks like or it feels like, but how it works. When it comes to branding, there's the visual identity as well as the brand identity, but it's the unification of the two that's where the magic happens. And that's where people will then be able to recognize you. And in visual building, consistency is king. Consistency breeds trust, and trust then breeds acceptance. It breeds more clients. It grows your following. Trust is everything when you're in business. So the visuals aid in that. The logo will then be what people will then identify you as. But oftentimes, for those of you who use Pinterest, you could just scroll through your own feed and be able to point out all your favorite bloggers' content just by the visual, even if they didn't have their watermark on the image, just because of the way in which the consistency in their visual styling is maintained across their brands. When you look on Instagram and you're looking through your favorite feed, certain filters or textures or qualities, Rebecca Radish is a great example. Everything's very bright and orange and exciting. And so when you see her feed, whether or not you know it's her yet, you would be able to recognize that in the feed. So, and that's all based on the consistency and unification of everything in somebody's brand. So the logo is just one piece of the puzzle, but the colors will dictate the tone and mood. The textures will dictate the tactile qualities in which your brand is felt. If something's very smooth or sensual versus something gritty and rough, all of that factors into the experience you're providing for your target audience or your target clients or whoever it is that you're reaching out to.
Well, I have no idea what mine say about me. So I try, I when I spoke to the graphic designer, I wanted something that was simple. Because even though, I look at certain people's stuff and I see it pop, and I go, "Ooh, that's nice."
Yeah.
But for myself, I don't feel like that would, really, work for me. I'm really a plain, just a plain dude. Like when I go to the restaurants, I end up ordering the same four things.
Most of us are like that. I think we're all creatures of habit. That's just a natural tendency. For those of you who aren't familiar with Erica Madden of Olivia Media, she had said a quote way back earlier in the year that pretty isn't profitable. And that just kind of always stuck with me, that there's always this need to stand out or look different or be different or to get fancier or prettier or go with whatever the trend is at the moment. But oftentimes I find that's where people complicate their visual identity and then it clashes with their actual brand. So when it comes to the visuals, I'm a plain Jane. I'm a jeans and t-shirt kind of girl. I like my white space on my website. I like no filtered images. For me, it's a much more blank slate, great place to start and a lot of clarity. And that's kind of what I strive for in my own brand. Whereas other people who want a really big punch or a call to action or excitement, brighter colors, bolder colors, and they're most likely brighter, bolder people. So often find when you get a really good brand, everything a part of them, whether it be the content layout, their typography, the visuals, when you meet the person in real life at a conference or via a video chat, you'll feel like you know them.
Okay, all right. So let's get to blogging, because I know a lot of educators out there, right? They blog. I blog myself. And how do people decide which content they write, post, videos they make, etc., actually add to the value of their brand versus becoming a distraction from their brand?
It's an excellent question. I think it really comes down to defining your brand's promise. Often when I work with clients in brand development, we'll define your vision, your mission, your values, and your brand's promise, which is separate from everything else. I usually try and get them to layer down to 3 keywords that articulate something personal, professional, and somewhat promotional within their content. So for me, my goal for my clients on my blog is to empower, to educate, and to inspire. And so whenever I write a piece of content, whether it be a blog post or a social media post, I read through it, and does it have something empowering? Does it give them some sort of tool or resource that they can take away with it and build their own brand? Is it inspiring? Does it use resources from other professionals? Am I bringing in educational opportunities? And then, of course, educational. Are they learning something from this? Is this something of value that they would walk away with, either having learned something new or maybe looking at it in a different way? Versus I have another client whose goals are to entertain and to educate, where she's trying to come at a very serious subject matter with a sense of humor. So people who come to her brand are people who want to learn about a specific topic, but are willing to come at it from a more lighthearted perspective, a lifestyle perspective, versus the very, you might normally look at this person's brand. So for her, when she writes content, she makes sure that, is it educational? Are they able to walk away and actually have learned something from this article that they could go apply to their own life? But did they have some laughs? Was there some personality? And was it entertaining for somebody to have more of an engaging learning experience versus it being strictly educational?
Mm-hmm. So, and thinking about that, what are some of the pitfalls should people avoid within the digital space?
Trying to reach too many people. Oftentimes it'll dilute your brand. And that's not just with visuals. I mean, it can be fun to try 1,001 different fonts and 1,001 different pictures. And that's not to say that if you're starting out, not to do that. It takes time to build a brand. It's not something that just falls into place and starts. And that includes the visual content. When I first got started, I thought I had everything squared away. I knew exactly how I wanted to look. And I put it all together. I'm like, wow, this looks really nice. But it was so hard to maintain because it wasn't really authentically me. So it took more time for me than to trial and error and test out stuff until I kind of fell into my own niche market for my brand, as well as my professional services, the visual identity, and my brand's voice. And all of that got stronger the more I was able to kind of find the pieces that fit more my style. So when somebody's in the pitfalls, it comes down to trying to reach too many people, too broad of a topic. Again, goes back to my little quote that if you stand for everything, you stand for nothing. So if you are trying to educate somebody, think about, one, all of the ways in which you're educating them. What are the different channels you could use to educate? There's so many. There's periscopes. You can have video. You could have digital. You could have blog posts. You could have workbooks. I mean, it's pretty much endless. So if you think at your target market and kind of break them down into 3 or 4 financial points, knowing, okay, what's a free service level that educates, entertains, et cetera, whatever your brand's values or your brand promise is, then a paid opportunity, and then a one-on-one, which would be the most exclusive, of course, part of what you're offering. So when you're curating content, keeping it consistent in that. If you're trying to reach too many people, have too many different topics, you're jumping from business to style to parenting to social media. I mean, if you're all over the place, some people can do it quite well. It just depends on the type of business, but oftentimes it dilutes your brand. People get confused. You don't really seem that you have a focus, and that lacks, or that loosens the trust that people will have within your brand. And that would be, I think, the #1 pitfall that I often see with a lot of new bloggers is they don't have the confidence in standing for something quite yet.
Okay, you just described me.
No, it did not.
That's terrible. That's terrible.
It depends on the brand. Everybody has their own standpoint. A lot of DIY bloggers or parent bloggers do a really great job of juggling so many different topics. If you guys aren't familiar with Wife, Mom, Superwoman, she does an amazing job at tackling 3 very key pieces as a lifestyle blogger, whether it be a professional woman, a wife, or a mother. And she has her site broken down really beautifully into 3 different sections, so you can kind of whatever one you identify with. But all of it flows within the same core concept of building the best you at whatever point you are in your life, or whatever position you're wearing. With all women and men too, wear multiple hats in their day depending on what their responsibilities are. And she's all about creating a consistent flow and living your life the strongest way possible through those different places. So she's a great example of somebody who can talk about multiple different topics without diluting her brand.
Okay. I'll be a little better now. Okay, so before we go, I want your advice on, I once read this blog post, and this one educator was like, I'm not a brand. And I knew what he was trying to say, but he is a brand. Because even if he did not think I am, brand you, people already have, he has a reputation, and people already have sort of a thought process of who this person is, whether he himself wants to accept it or not. And so for those who are not quite sold on the idea of personal branding, what is your advice to those for why they should take steps to be proactive in defining their brand?
I think you really said it beautifully, where he says, or this individual says, that they're not branded, but clearly people have an opinion of you. Whether you're a professional or you're not a professional, you're your brand. Everybody is their own brand of themselves. People have an opinion of you, whether you share that opinion or not, or whether you care or not. People have an opinion of you. You go to your friend's house and it's super messy. Everybody's had that roommate in college. It's super messy roommate, doesn't do the dishes, doesn't do the laundry. I mean, this is the extreme circumstance. And you don't want to go to their house. There's probably the friend you don't really want to go visit. You love them, they're a good friend of yours, but you're not going to go over there for Sunday night football, and you're not going to crash on their couch after going out. That's just not going to happen. Versus another friend who's got a guest bedroom, and their house is always clean, and they always have great food, and they're just an excellent hostess. you'll probably be more inclined to go for a dinner party or to go hang out or a barbecue or whatnot. You're a little bit more excited to spend time in that person's home. That's a personal opinion in which you have about experiencing life with that individual in their space. For us, that space is our website. So whether you care or not, you are giving off a certain vibe, a tone, a mood, a quality. You're standing for something even whether or not you think you are. And to know what that is key. To know what that is will give you the clarity and the confidence to grow and move forward. Without that, you kind of go back and forth and you'll be frustrated. I find that that's usually the key thing with my clients, is that they haven't quite reached that clarity and confidence in identifying what they stand for. And that's the consistency that breeds everything. Consistency breeds trust in your following, and trust is everything. When it comes to investing in your brand, that alone will do wonders. When you know what you stand for, you know what you don't stand for. And you'll know where to go from there, or at least to give you a direction to get started.
Awesome. Awesome. Y'all, I don't know about everyone who's watching this video or who will watch this video, but I had a good time.
I had a great time. I hope that I hope I answered your questions okay. I gave some food for thought for all the viewers out there.
Oh, it's awesome. They will, and hopefully you'll come back on the show at a later date.
I'd love to. I love your show. I think it's great. I love you bring so many different people on, and just little snippets of information to take away and apply to whatever direction they're going in. I'm a huge fan of educators, so anytime it's an educational opportunity, I'm excited.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you. So, folks, as you know how I do, her information and bio and such will, how I get in contact with her on Twitter will be on the blog post, and you'll be able to check it out. And guess what? The Dr. Will Show is on SoundCloud, folks. So you can now, on your way to work, listen to the Dr. Will Show. It took me long enough, but now I have some audio-only podcasts coming. So thanks again, Julie, for being on the show. Thanks, everyone, for watching. I'm going to take a week or so hiatus, going to a conference. But when I get back, I got some hot stuff, y'all. Trust me. So as always, people, be you, EDU, and I'll see you next time. Oh, still recording.